I was a psychotherapist for 14 years in social services. I heard so many stories, too many trauma stories, some really sad stories. Like, there, what I thought was so weird or abnormal or not okay about me, like it's me. The astrology is right there. It's like I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. It's almost like there's some permission given for being who you are.
Buckle up for a new episode of the S.H.E podcast, the show where we have real and raw conversations to inspire and empower you to be seen and heard so you can create balance in everything you want in your life and business. I'm your host, S.H.E, and I'm excited to walk alongside of you on this journey of being seen, heard, and empowered. Welcome to the S.H.E podcast. Be seen, be heard, be empowered. I'm your host, S.H.E, and excited to have you here today. And I'm excited to introduce you to my special guest today, which is everything we're going to talk about is very intriguing. It's a new area for me. I dip my toes in the waters, if you will, but I really don't know a ton about it. And there's some things that I'm excited to talk with her about and learn more about. So without further ado, welcome Lori Barnes. Welcome, Lori Barnes, to the podcast. I have a friend named Lori Barnes. That's why I called you that. So welcome, Lori Barnes, to the show. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely, Lori. Before we dive in, let me share I'm going to give everybody a little bit of background about you, and then I'll let you take it away. So Lori Barnes is a professional astrologer, licensed psychotherapist, and marketing strategist with over 35 years of experience across industries. Based between Illinois and Rome, Italy, she brings a unique global perspective to her work, blending modern and traditional astrology with psychology, marketing, and astro mapping techniques such as astrocartography, I love that word, and local space. Lori's expertise helps individuals and entrepreneurs align timing, place, and strategy to achieve their goals. Her academic background includes a BA in business, an MA in psychology, an MA in marketing, and a diploma in astrology. She serves as marketing director for Kepler College and the Organization for Professional Astrology, OPA, and teaches classes on marketing, psychology, astrology, and astrocartography. I really love that word. I already have so many questions, Lori, but I'm just going to put those on pause right now. Can you share with us everything that you're doing right now inside of your world? Have you always had this passion and interest since you were a child, or are there certain events that happen in your life that led you toward what you're doing now?
Yeah, it was always a passion of mine, although there were things that happened along the way that helped me get to where I am now. I don't know that I would have predicted that it was going to look exactly like it does, but I can tell you that when I was a kid, I used to pretend like I owned my own business. And I would get, like notepads that people threw away, and I'd have my pens and my pencils, and I'd sit in my room and I would pretend like I was a business owner. So that I knew, like I always knew I wanted to own my own business. I didn't really see it as astrology combined with psychology and business, but that's what it ended up being. And I'm really excited that it turned out this way.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in and learn more about you and how this path led you to where you are now. But you are blending modern and traditional astrology with psychology and also with marketing and astro mapping techniques, which I'm curious as to what that is. So can you tell us more about how you're blending those pieces together? Because psychology, marketing, and astrology, you wouldn't normally think that they go together,
I
right?
know, right. And in this day and time that we live in with social media, internet, email, there's accessibility to so much information that it actually made sense when I started putting it together. So I'll start with astrology. I've been a student lover of astrology since 1994. Been doing it a really long time. And it was a hobby. So my first career was in marketing, and that was before internet and email. And then I went into psychology, and I loved it because I really wanted to know how our psyche worked. Like I just wanted to understand human behavior. So I got my master's in psychology and I started working with people and had 14 years of counseling experience, all the while doing my astrology and seeing very clearly how helpful astrology would be in the therapy room. But with a lot of organizations, especially in social services, where I was working in that sector, it's highly regulated and I couldn't bring them together. It just wasn't allowed where I worked. And I could have gone into private practice as a psychotherapist, but I really wanted to focus on astrology. And so I decided to go the coaching route. And at that point, and of course, I'm talking over decades of time, I realized that how I was going to go into business for me was to combine the astrology and the psychology, but more positive psychology, which is actually a branch of psychology, and not be under the constraints of regulation. And also because I moved away from California, and the way that the United States works is that your license is in the state that you live in. So I couldn't just take that license and go practice anywhere, right? So that wasn't even an option. And I had met my now husband in Italy and I was moving overseas. So, that's just a whole other ball game. I was like, I'm not going to go back and get another master's degree in psychology just to be a therapist in another country. And but I did want to go back to school. And this brings in the marketing part two. When I was a marketing professional in my early life, when I was young, it was such a different world. And I knew that if I was going to open my own business and do any kind of business, whether it was for myself or someone else, I had to re-educate myself into the modern world of marketing. That's where the marketing came in, is I actually went and got that second master's in marketing here in Italy and recently because I really wanted to upgrade my skills. And I became so knowledgeable in best marketing practices that it just kind of fell in, the marketing aspect. But to go on top of that, I ended up working at Kepler College, which is where I'm the marketing director. And that really brought it together. I actually teach a class on marketing for astrologers that is not limited to astrologers. It's good for coaches, etc. But anyway, I don't mean to go all over the place with my story, but the thing is, I'm on my third career. That's how I got here. That's how all these things were combined, because that was my pathway. And those are the things that I am highly experienced and educated in. And I've been able to find a way to combine them.
I love it. I think it's incredible how you've merged all of those together and brought all of your passions and your learnings. And also your thirst for learning is pretty inspiring as well. Like you're always learning no matter what. So I'm curious, what led you? You have multiple degrees, right? This
Yeah.
wasn't an easy path for you. So what challenges did you face along the way when you were first getting started in finding your path? Because we have a lot of women listening who may be like, out there going, I know there's something more for me, but I don't know what it is. I'm nervous because people are telling me to do this and I really want to do this, but they're like, this is the safe space. And I know you've had a pretty interesting journey yourself to get to where you are now. Can you share with us what that looks like?
Yeah. Yeah. I was born in rural Illinois, so, farmland and, marvelous, wonderful people, and also people who have a pretty clear sense of what people should do. And it works really well for the majority of people. But not everybody fits the mold. And I think this is where people in your audience will probably relate to, is that when you don't fit in, or when you know that what you want to do isn't acceptable to your family, to your friends, to your community, you feel kind of like outside, you're an outlier. And I think many people just conform. They're just like, I want to fit into that circle, even though I'm a square, because I just don't want to take the heat. I don't want to hear people in my ear telling me I shouldn't do that. I can't do that. Why am I doing that? Or worse. I mean, we know that people have heard much worse. And I was one of those people. I knew I didn't fit in. I knew it my whole experience in school, primary school, especially in high school. And luckily, I just had the kind of personality, I had a lot of fire in me, and you can see that in an astrology chart, where I just wasn't going to fit the mold. And I could not wait to get out. And I got myself out. I know that a lot of people don't get themselves out. And this is where astrology saved me. I will say that astrology has been my free psychotherapist. I've been saying this before I even became a psychotherapist. And what has remained in my life? Astrology. I love psychology, but I feel like, and I know, I should say, I know that astrology has helped me a lot more than psychotherapy because what astrology shows you is the unique you. What is it that you need? What is it that you're likely going to be drawn to or attracted to? And that really helped me see that I am the kind of person who needs to experience life. I love experience. Why do I do so much education? Because I love to learn and experience and know more, more, more. But to get back to the story and to help the audience, if you're feeling like you don't fit in, if you're trying to conform so that you don't have to hear it from your spouse, your partner, your parents, your kids, your friends, your church, whoever it is, because they're all going to tell you what they think you should be doing. You have to listen to yourself. And most of the people saying this have good intentions because it may be true that that's what they need. This is what I find most often is that projection or that mirroring. They see in you what is best for you, but it's through their own needs, their own experiences, and it may not necessarily be what's right for you, but it's like with good intentions. Like I see this with my mom, especially not so much now, but when I was younger, we went, I mean, always head to head. And I know now, looking back, all she wanted was for me to have a wonderful, safe, and secure life because that's the life that she led. But I was never going to lead that life. I was always going to fly by the seat of my pants. I was always going to, walk after the balloon, like, where is that going? And I needed something else that confirmed what I felt inside. And that's the astrology.
Mm. So I love that you said what you just shared because I have two kids. My daughter's 16, my son is 14. And as a parent, I look back on me growing up and I had a clear path, didn't end up taking that path, but I knew what my path was. And both of them are young enough to where they're like, and I'm telling them, you don't need to know your path because I thought I knew it. And it didn't work out. So I feel like sometimes the younger you are and the clearer you are, it just kind of really throws you for a loop when it doesn't happen that way. Whereas if you're not sure what you're up to and the world is open to you, then you have more to choose from. And there's not this pressure that I felt like I had put on myself. And I love that you said what you said because I want to make, as a parent, like we do want the best for our children. We want them, like we feel we know because we've been through the ringer, we've made the mistakes, we've fallen flat on our face, and we don't want our kids to do the same thing. But like you shared, you are different. My children are not me. My children are different. And I think that's a big gold nugget and takeaway for any of you moms out there or parents, if we have any fathers listening. Our kids are different than us. They're not us. If they were us, it'd be a problem, right? We gave birth to these amazing humans who hopefully will find their way and make an impact in the world in whichever way they're meant to do it. And we need to allow them to find that path without putting our hard stipulations on it. Can we guide them? Can we give them advice? Absolutely. But we should release it without, you're not disappointing us if you don't do this path, or you're not wrong if you don't choose this path. And this is perfect timing for me because we're going to be looking for colleges this year and figuring out if that's the right path, because it's not the right path for everybody. So your
Yeah.
story for me personally, Lori, it's a huge thank you because this is what I needed to hear in the moment. As much as I try to be that person, I know I push a little hard sometimes, and it's a good reminder that hey, we got to let them fall, and if they're going to fall, high school is the time to do it, right? Because once they get out there, like we want to set them up to, and we want to set them up to understand what failure is and know that it's going to happen, and you can get back up and keep going. Like it's not going to crush you. It doesn't have to take you out. It's not, you're not down for the count. You are down for a moment, and then you get to like basically what I love what Les Brown says, when you fail and you fall on your back, you're looking up. And
Yeah.
that is a great place to be looking because that's the way to go. And you just have to have the resilience and the courage to do it. And you did have that. So I'm curious, you have all these degrees, you found your path through astrology. Astrology, I have multiple questions on where you are now and how you went overseas, but astrology can be for many people, it can feel, and I'm one of these people. I love it. I'm intrigued by it, but I don't go deep enough in it. And it feels very broad. Like it's like, oh, well, that could mean for anyone. So, what was it that really piqued your interest, or do you have a moment that you can remember that really shifted the needle for you? And you're like, I love this and I need to know more.
When I was young, I had a couple of astrology books, and I remember reading them, and I couldn't tell you what I read or who wrote the book. In fact, those books disappeared from my parents' house, and I don't know where they went. But I remember having them. And I remember when I was leaving to go to college, I was 17 because I was one of those kids who had the birthday later. So I was
I was the
very,
same as you. Yeah. So 17. Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
remember.
I'm going off to college at 17 years old with these books in my little drawer thing, whatever, in my old room. Like, I was leaving that life, but I left a lot of stuff at my parents' house because obviously you can't take everything with you to college. And I remember, I can still remember in my room with this thought in my head saying, astrology books, I'm going to learn you. I'm coming back to you. And it was not until I would say maybe 7 or 8 years later, I when I was in college, I didn't finish college where I started. I really hated that school, kind of going with, what you were saying, like, you try something, but if it's not the right fit, having that fluidity or flexibility to be able to pivot and to switch directions. And I did. And I ended up going to a different school in Chicago in the right program. It was exactly what I wanted to study. And I've had to work full time while I was going to school. And that's really hard to do, but I did it. It took me 8 years to get my degree, but I did it. And as soon as I graduated, I had all this time on my hands because I was super disciplined. When you're working a full-time job and then you're going to school full-time, you really have to be disciplined. And I was, and I didn't want to lose it. So I said, what am I going to do with this time? And I decided in that moment to study astrology seriously. It is very complex. If you read your horoscope, it is very surface. It's true, but think about a human being. We are extremely complex and we are contradictory.
Mm.
Well, yeah, I think I said that right. We have contradictions, right? We say this and then we do that, and they don't go together. And that's how astrology, or that's what astrology shows us. It shows us that depth. You're not going to get depth from a Sunday horoscope. It's only talking about one part of the chart, and there's 1/12 of the world who shares that. So it's never going to be as individualized as you probably want. Now, is it a great way to introduce you to astrology? Yeah, because it's still true. Like every Libra who's born in October, that's the sun sign is Libra, and you're going to read it, and there's going to be some truth to that. But astrology is extremely complex. And if you want to actually get the experience of it, you would want to sign up with an astrologer, get a consultation. And in that consultation, which is usually 60 to 90 minutes, you're going to be able to get a lot more depth about yourself. And even then, we can barely scratch the surface of everything you. How could we possibly do that? If you've lived for 50 years, an astrologer cannot talk about all 50 years and then, the next year or 5 years to come. But what we can do is hone in. Whenever I book a consultation, I always ask, what's going on in your life? What is it that you want to know about? So that when I prepare, I hone in on those things and I am ready to talk about them. And then I have this extra layer, which you mentioned earlier, and I forgot to talk about earlier, but that's the astro mapping. And astrology has a lot of different branches. It has a lot of different techniques, and you cannot learn it all in a lifetime. It's impossible for any one person to know every single branch and technique of astrology. It's been around for more than 2,000 years
Wow.
in the form that it is today, which is, the round horoscope. But we can go back 5,000 years to see what the ancients did with astrology. It's just evolved so much over time. So the astro mapping, that's what I was getting to, is that I have this extra layer in my practice, and astrocartography is becoming a lot more popular, a lot more known. And that is combining the timing. I think most people know astrology is kind of about timing, like, oh, what's happening? There's a full moon. What does that mean? And then there's also location. So where am I when this full moon happens? And how does it impact me when I move far away from the place where I was born? So we can look at it in both of those ways too. We can look at time and, your experience up to now and how we see that in the chart. And we can look at, what's coming in the future. But we can also look at place, and place has just as much impact as time. And I'd just like to say one more thing, and that is some astrologers do pretty concise predictions about what will happen, but I'd say more don't. And I'm on the side of I don't do specific predictions. Like I'm not your astrologer if you want to know when you're going to get married and how many babies you're going to have. And that's because I believe in free will. I mean,
Right.
fate is the chart, right? Fate is like this is what kind of like the blueprint that you were born with. But what you do with it after you're born, that's totally up to you. How you react to things, how you've built your life. Like when I look at a chart of a 50-year-old, there's a lot less time, but a lot more experience. If I'm talking to a 20-year-old, there's a lot more time, but a lot less experience. And those things have to be considered. And that's why I don't do specific predictions. But what I say is the upcoming time period, there's, this quality of energy. These types of topics are likely to be of interest to you or just happening to you, around you, within you. And of course, it depends on the planet because that's going to tell you more. That's a little astrology lesson right there.
I love that. And what came to my mind when you said that, and this could be completely weird to you, I was thinking about keeping it myself, but I'm just going to say it because I'm 53 and thinking back in my 20s when I used to get a reading or something. Yeah, you have much more time, but less experience, like you shared. But I'm curious if anything would come up for you for like a 40 something year old woman who is like, they're not in their childbearing years. So I it was just like, is it possible to ever see like, oh, this is still up for them or not? Are those the kind of things that are still like that would be personal? Because other, like I said, it could be very broad, but does it get that personal where for that specific person, based on what you can see and when they were born and their astrological sign, the sun, the moon, and all of that? I don't know a lot about it, but I know a little. Are those things that could be a little like surprising that you've seen come up for people? Or
Not
again, is
really.
it free will?
I don't think I'm all that surprised, only because I was a psychotherapist for 14 years in social services. I heard so many stories, too many trauma stories, some really sad stories, and of course, some wonderful stories as well. So I can't speak for all astrologers. There can always be surprising things that come up. I just find it's more people feel validated with astrology, like, oh, there, what I thought was so weird or abnormal or not okay about me, like it's me. The astrology is right there. It's like I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. It's almost like there's some permission given for being who you are. And that doesn't just go for the outliers, for the people who don't feel like they fit in. It goes just as much for the person who's taken let's say the typical US route where, you graduate from high school, you go to college, you get married, you have your career, you have babies, you buy a house. There's kind of that trajectory that a lot of people think is like the way to be. And I've seen I've, had plenty of clients who take that route. And when it fits, it's a beautiful thing. It's like I own that. It's what I wanted. I'm happy. But then I also know that there's people who did not follow that route and they're thriving and they're excited. And
Right.
then you have the ones who didn't, who just did the opposite of what they were supposed to do.
Right.
So I don't know if that really answers your
It
question.
does.
It's like,
It does. No, it was, like I said, it was an off the cuff question and I wasn't sure I was even phrasing it right, but that's kind of what was hitting my mind. Sometimes I'll take things in my head and it doesn't come out right. You answered it perfectly. So thank you. I'm curious with you working with Kepler College and then also having your own business. And you had mentioned that you restarted 3 times. So what was that like? Like, were you worried? Did you have any fear? Or were you just like, are you that person? Like you said, you kind of are an outlier. Never like high school wasn't, you felt like you weren't really fitting in there and couldn't wait to move on. Was this the same for you with your your pivots or your shifts 3 times with restarting? Were you just like, yeah, I'm just ready. This is me and I'm good with it? Or did you have some fear and challenges that you faced along the way?
Yeah, both, for sure, both. I think what happens for me, so I wonder, I'd love to hear if your audience kind of where they stand. I can stick or have staying power for a long time, but there comes a moment where I am just done. And
Switch
when
is
I'm
flipped,
done,
right? You switch is flipped and you're like, it's off. I'm done. The light was on for a while and now the switch, yeah, I think many of us have had that in relationships and in work.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Then I will go. Confidently, I will go. Terrified, absolutely. Fear, absolutely. But for some of us, there's a little bit of thrill in that fear. Like if I don't have some sort of fear, if I'm not taking on a challenge, if I'm not, metaphorically jumping off the cliff with the trust that I'm going to land on my feet safely, that it makes me excited. But I know that there are lots of people who that's not exciting for them. It does not feel good. In fact, it can cause even medical problems, like so much anxiety, that it's like I can't breathe, I have panic attacks. Not me personally, but that kind of change can cause that. And you just have to kind of like know yourself. And, how do I take risks is a good question to ask, because if you know that you want to do something that's risky, you want to do it in a way that works for you. You can't look at, you can't go buy one of those one size fits all marketing programs because it could work for that person, but fall completely flat for yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good point. Um, so Lori, how can people connect with you and reach out to you and learn more about you and what you're up to? And what are you up to? Tell us more about your business and your company.
Yeah, I have my own business and then I have a pretty big job with the college. So even though they're kind of like my big client, you could say, I teach. So I get to teach there and I get to do their marketing and it's lovely. I absolutely love it. If you want to learn astrology, I think Kepler College is one of the best schools out there because we have over 60 faculty members. We have, 25 to 30 or more courses every term, 4 terms a year. You're going to find almost every kind of astrology you can study, and we have, very beginner level all the way to advanced. I teach local space, which is this new and upcoming technique in astrology, which is literally looking at astrology in your home and where you put stuff. Like I'm on the Saturn line. So Saturn is the planet of like discipline and structure. And I had a lot of things on my plate this year. So I was like, I'm going to go sit on my Saturn line so I can get it all done. Is it pleasant? Not really. It's about hard work, but the hard work tends to pay off. And then I will, move over to a different line. But I teach that. Now, in my personal practice, I do coaching for, I focus on business owners, small business owners, but as you've heard, I can, like I work with all different types of people and whatever their goal is. I'm goal oriented. That's the one thing you're going to get is like, if you want to work with me, it's like, what is it that you want to accomplish in the time we're working together? And I will use astrology and regular life coaching skills to help them get there. So I do both packages of coaching and then I do single types of consultations. Like if you're like, I just want to have my astrology chart read, I can do that. And then I have a special kind of service, which is branding. I love branding, and I've actually designed this like you can call a report where it looks at all of your planets and then instead of talking about them in general like we do in astrology, it talks specifically to a business and a brand, and it's based on your astrology chart. And then of course I have my location services in general, the astrocartography, which is like, where should I move, and if I can't move, can I use locations? I can do like remote activation, which is like, picking a place and doing vision boards and or maybe getting things from that location. And that's really good for people who can't move but want to use location to try to achieve their goals. So I think I've covered it all. You can reach me at loribarnesastrology.com. That's where I am, and I'm sure I can give you a link to pop in the
Yeah,
description.
we'll have all of your links in the show notes, but go to our Lori Astrology, loribarnesastrology.com. Definitely check her out there. And make sure you look at Kepler College too as well, and we'll have all the links to the show notes. But I'm still our astrocartography. You touched on it, and so you also mentioned that you can use astrology to see if the things in your home are placed right. That was interesting to me. I'm like, what if I have it all wrong? Can astrology help us get organized? Because I kind of need that, Lori.
Yeah,
Just
it
saying.
it
And many
can.
other women I think out there are like, oh, Heidi, I hear you. I feel the same.
Yeah. I would combine it with your regular organizational type of stuff.
Goal setting. Yeah, probably for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an umbrella term, astro mapping. That's what we call it at the college. And there's a couple of different techniques. So astrocartography is one, and local space or compass astrology is the other. And local space and compass are, together. And one of them focuses on the home. It's kind of like the feng shui of astrology. And the astrocartography is more about where in the world can I take a particular planet in my chart and kind of supercharge it, power it up. For example, if you want to write a book, Mercury is usually the planet that we look at. It's the planet of communication and writing. So we might say, how can we really boost Mercury for you while you write your book? So first it's like, well, where can we find a place that you could go, whether you go, take a Airbnb for 3 months to go write, maybe you want to move, or you can't maybe go anywhere. So we find a location and we remote activate it by bringing some of that into where you are. That's astrocartography. I like to use it to find the where, and then I use the local space for when you get there and what are you physically going to do. The the person that I have learned from, Tamara McGillivray, she's really developed the concept, and I'm lucky enough to now teach. And she calls it feet on the ground astrology, which I love because it's really about your physical experience in space. So it's a very different concept. For any of you out there who know astrology, you may not have even heard of this, and not that many people know how to practice it. But it's what you were talking about, Heidi, that we can take your chart. And so you're going to have to get a bit visual with me. So kind of get your visual brain on. And imagine that we take a chart, just a round chart, and we put it on top of the layout of your home, and we see the planets and how they fan out in different directions from the center of your home. And through that, we can design different parts of your home to manifest different things. So, like back to the writing, if you're like, I can't move anywhere, but I'm going to write my book in my home. So, let's use local space. Let's see where Mercury, that's energy, and I'm calling it a line because that's how we look at it. We're looking at kind of like a line of energy. Where does it fall in your home? Is it going through your bathroom? Is it going through your kitchen? Is it going through your bedroom, your living room? And once we know where it is, we can talk about how to kind of boost that up in your actual physical space.
Wow. Wow. So you mentioned Mercury. So I'm curious. We always hear about Mercury retrograde. Like if the things are messed up, and we hear it about a lot. Oh, we must be in Mercury retrograde. And I joke about it, but I have no clue what it means. And I'm sure not a lot of other people are hearing it all the time because it seems like we're always in Mercury retrograde, Lori. So what does it mean?
I'm so glad you asked. It is one of my favorite introductory ways to work with astrology. Like if you want to kind of get beyond reading the horoscope that you can find everywhere online these days, Mercury retrograde is kind of like the next easiest way to work with astrology, even if you don't know anything about it. So first of all, what is it? The every chart, every one of us in this podcast has a birth chart. It's based on where we were born, what time we were born, and where we were born. So with that, we can find out, where our Mercuries are in our chart. But what Mercury retrograde is about is more about where Mercury is in the sky right now, right? So if you think about your chart, it's a snapshot of a particular day and time, and that has a lot of meaning. But when we talk about Mercury retrograde, we're talking about the moving planet right now. So just to clarify that, because not to confuse your personal Mercury with Mercury retrograde. Now, we say it's going backwards. It's not really going backwards, right? It's still moving around the sun. But so is the Earth, right? And as we know, like if you're driving around a curve, sometimes a car can go around you and they may not necessarily be going faster than you. Um, or I'm sorry, you're probably going faster than that car, even though they may not be. What is that called? Magic uses that term where it's like a thing of the eye, where what is really happening isn't really as it appears. So you're driving by the car and you're
Illusion.
passing the car,
An illusion.
right? What's
Yeah.
that?
An illusion.
An illusion. Yeah. Like it looks like the car's going backwards, but it's not going backwards. You're just
Right.
going faster than that car. Does that make sense? So
Mhm.
that's Mercury retrograde, but it has significant meaning in astrology because when a planet goes retrograde, it's like it's looking backwards. It's looking to the past. And also, people from the past might reappear. And Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year for 3 weeks. And it has kind of like a pre-shadow and a post-shadow. Then that just has to do with it slowing down, and then it's in its retrograde, and then it kind of stops, and then it speeds back up. I don't want you all to get too caught up in the technical details because it can hurt your brain when you're just starting to learn it. But just know that it's the apparent movement backwards. It's not really moving backwards, but it has that significant meaning in astrology. And so why I think it's the a really fun and a really easy way to work with astrology is that once you start understanding how to work with it, then you can look forward to it happening 3 times a year. And what I recommend to everyone, and if you subscribe to my newsletter, and I hope you do, I will always let you know. I will always give you advance warning, like, hey, it's coming, these are the dates, and here's how to work with it. So if you don't want to get caught up in like, don't buy anything, don't sign any contracts, and every communication is going to get broken because all those things could possibly happen. They also happen outside of a Mercury retrograde, right? It's just that they kind of seem to be on steroids during the retrograde. But I see that as more surface stuff. It's like, yeah, Mercury's planet of communication. When it's in its retrograde, it's not functioning at its best. So things just fall apart. But that, to me, undermines the potential of working with it. So, what should you do, or what could you do? Because I don't ever, want to tell you what you should do. But my recommendation to work with Mercury retrograde is when you know they're coming, know that this is a time to slow down, try to put a lot more space in your calendar. Just plan for more time because it's the what you want to the best way to work with it is to do that reflection. Review stuff that you've already done. Like if you're writing a book and you wrote a lot, when you get to Mercury retrograde, plan on going back and maybe reading like what you've done. If you have a big project or you're planning an event, go back, go look over all those details. You could probably end up making it better. You'll probably end up finding errors that will, by catching them early, you will have a much smaller thing to take care of rather than letting it turn into a big thing. So
Yeah.
review, reflect, revise. That's what you do during Mercury retrograde. Try not to start anything new. Try not to buy anything that's big ticket. But you know what? Sometimes you have to. And what I say is if you have to, take the extended warranty. I actually wrote like a free download that I would love to offer to all of your audience about Mercury retrograde that can go into more detail and to talk to some different life themes, event planning in your office. Like I have all of that spelled out to give a bit more information.
Perfect. So where do we get that? Or are we going to drop the link for you?
I'll give you a link and
Okay.
that will take you to where you can, you'll you have to give me your email, but you can easily unsubscribe if you don't want to stay on my list. I really hope that you do, but that's how that'll work. I'll give you a link to the page and you can sign up and you'll get the download immediately.
Perfect. So we're going to get that from Lori, and you can definitely grab that and download that. So we will have the link for that in the show notes too, but definitely go check out LoriBarnesAstrology.com. Lori, before we wrap up, this has been an awesome conversation. It's been so much fun, so different than anything I've ever done, and I love it. So thank you for being a guest, being here today. And I know I've learned a lot, and now I'm intrigued to learn more. So what is do you have a fun fact about you? Something that we wouldn't know by going to LoriBarnesAstrology.com or checking you out on social media. that we might be a little surprised to learn about you?
I think it's kind of funny that I've never ever in my life had a manicure pedicure.
Never.
Never, somebody recently asked me that. I was at like a conference and somebody asked that and nobody believed me either. It's like, no, I really haven't. I just don't like
Nobody's
when people,
even bought it for you. Like your husband, I didn't get to ask you how you got to Rome, so we're gonna have to bring you back. But we have to talk about that real quick if we have time. But yeah, like your husband never even like he knows like don't buy me a manicure pedicure.
right? No, no, he knows better.
Yeah,
It's more like take me to some wild ruin that I haven't seen before. He knows that's the better way. Actually, one time somebody bought me a pedicure. I was a bridesmaid, and she's like, "We're all going," and I'm like, "I'm going, but I'm not getting one." And she tried. She was like, "You have to have one. Everybody else is getting one." And as soon as that they touched my feet, I was like, "No, I just."
you're like
I
no
just don't like when people touch my nail. It's my nails specifically. Like I don't know. It's like a tactile thing. Like, you
sensory
know.
thing maybe. Yeah, you're on both your feet and your hands. Either one, they're
Yeah,
like no.
yeah. Just on my nails. Like, and I can do it. Like, I can paint my nails, but I don't want anyone touching my nail. I can do a massage. Like, I love massage. Like, it's not just the touching. It was specifically to my nails.
That's interesting. Well, that is a fun fact, interesting fact. So last question for you. Well, real quickly, what brought you to Rome? Like you like literally, is that your astrocartol? Am I saying it right?
Astrocartography.
Cartography. Was it that took you to Rome, Italy?
And
Were you
I
made
can
everything?
No, it wasn't the technique because I had not started studying the technique. I started studying it right after I moved to Rome.
Okay.
It was learning the language. That's how I got here. I wanted to learn Italian and I had been studying it for 2 years, doing the audio, where you play it and then you repeat. And I realized like I have to immerse. So I decided to come over here and do language school for a solid week, just get into it, immerse. And I found an Airbnb just down the street from the school. And the person who ran the Airbnb is now my husband. So there's a story there.
That. That's so cool. You never know. That's why you have to be yes to experiences. You can't say no, and you have to step out of your comfort zone. I'm sure that was a little scary. For me, it would be scary. Maybe for you, you're like, oh, I got this. But for me, going to a different country would be scary. And it's interesting. Just last night, my son was like, I want to learn Italy. So it's Italy. I want to learn Italian. So he downloaded the app to kind of learn it. So who knows? Maybe he'll be coming out to see you one day.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a wonderful country and you just can't beat the food. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
really.
yeah. I've been there a couple times in certain areas, and oh my gosh, like Switzerland. I've been to Switzerland. The food, not. And then we went to Italy right after that. I'm like, oh, thank you for
Yeah.
some food. Yeah, it's really awesome. I mean, Switzerland's beautiful, and they have their things, but you can't beat the food in Italy, for sure. So my last question for you before we wrap up is, if you could have lunch with anybody, and whether they're alive or deceased, who would it be and why?
Oh my gosh, I have to pick one. See, that I'm a Sagittarius rising, and that is so hard to do. Okay, who would it be? Well, I think it would be a female, and maybe Mary Magdalene.
Sure, that would be interesting.
I
Yeah.
just want to know what really happened. Like, was she really a prominent disciple? Did she have a bigger role than I don't want to offend any Christians in here because I, really think everyone is entitled to believe whatever they want to believe. It's just that I do think that there is a lot more to her story that the Christian going back 2,000 years has not allowed to come out because it's so patriarchal and male dominant. But you find some research out there, you find some university professors who look more deeply, and Mary Magdalene was a thing, and she's rumored to be the partner of Jesus. She's also rumored for actually leading things, but she's quite erased from history as we know it today. So I would really like to know from her, like what really happened, like what was really going on with Jesus and how he was when he was alive.
Yeah. And yeah, I believe there's more to her story too. And it's just even back then, it was very male dominated. And we're getting where women are thriving more, rising up, if you will, and becoming, finding their place. We're definitely finding our place more than we did thousands of years ago. So it was much different for her back then. So I'm sure a lot of her story has been not shared in so much. We hear a lot of the negative, which I'm interested in, like going even further back, learning more about her childhood, about what put her in those positions she was in, and and then moving forward and what she did. Like you said, learning really what like how she because she definitely a leader, and what did that look like for her, and how did she how did she lead, and what was it that she contributed, because we know there's more contribution than what we probably know about for sure.
Yeah.
And now you have me inspired to look into her more, so because I've always thought she was a very interesting person for sure, in history and in religion.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And please, for you listening, go to LoriBarnesAstrology.com. Go check that out. Go to our show notes, grab the free gift that Lori has for you, that we're dropping the link there. Reach out to her. If you don't see the link, feel free to reach out to her. She's amazing. She'll definitely connect with you. And yeah, get to dive into learning more about yourself, more about the astro mapping, if that's what it's called, and astrocartography. We learned a lot to here today. Definitely not enough time for us to dive deeper into it, but definitely enough to get your palette going on wanting to learn more and opening those doors to potentially learning more about some things you didn't know, especially Mercury retrograde. Don't be buying anything during the time. If you do, make sure you protect yourself with certain things, like she said. And it's a great time. There's always a good time to reflect. And if those 3 times are your set in stone calendar that you're marking off to reflect, because you don't get time to do it otherwise, then make that a habit. It's just a good reminder that, it's not good to live in the past. The windshield is always bigger than your rearview mirror, but it's always good to reflect and learn from it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Is there anything, Lori, that you want to share before I let you go that I didn't get to ask you or we didn't touch on today?
You just mentioned Mercury retrograde. I didn't actually say this, and I wanted to say this now. When I say work with Mercury retrograde, now that you know it happens 3 times a year, plan those periods for your more restful periods. Knowing in advance is that just gives you so much more power and control to know that these are the time periods where I'm going to lighten my schedule, plan for those reviews, reassessments, reflections. And then right after Mercury goes direct, that's when you start taking action. Everything that you learn during that Mercury retrograde, you're going to want to go put those things into action. So just think about, that you have your pre, which tells you it's starting to slow down. So now start lightening your schedule. In the retrograde, you're doing your reflection and your reviews. And then post, you're starting to put those things that you learned into action. So I'm glad that I got to say that because
Yeah,
I
I am too. No, it's great because we always talk about what is it? Review. Make sure you're reviewing what's working and what's not working. And this is a
Mhm.
great time 3 times a year to plan for it and go, what's been working? What's not working? Let's okay. This is a great time to reflect on going, this hasn't worked for me in the last so many months. Let's get rid of that. And how do we tweak it and take action on that to see if it's working, and then continue what's working, right?
Yeah.
Continue what's
Yep.
working, look at what's not working, get rid of not working. But it could just be a small tweak that we need to make. And then as soon as that post Mercury retrograde kicks in, like Lori was saying, take action on those tweaks you want to make and keep going with what's been working. And that is a great 3 times a year. If no other time you do it, 3 times a year, let's make that happen. So thank you, Lori, for your time today. We used up all our time. So I appreciate you and the time that you spent with me today. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for listening to us on the B-She podcast. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode. In the meantime, be empowered to be seen and heard.